This is on the Friedman side of the family, David. Will you tell us who this is?
I don't know.
It's your grandfather, or your great-grandfather.
Oh, is that Aaron?
That's Aaron.
That's one of the earliest pictures of him.
Okay, yes, yes. Somewhere with. So the Reuben family was a merger of the Friedman family and the Reuben family. This is a lead branch of the Friedman family that David will be describing. But he became the influence. Aaron Friedman was the cantor of the Berlin synagogue, okay? And David reportedly, he persuaded the family to let Samuel, my grandfather, go from Shaki, Lithuania, to Hanover Seminary in Germany. Okay, so this is a noteworthy cantor that's more on David's side of the family. But his music, as David will tell you, is in the Hebrew University, Jerusalem.
Yes.
He was a noteworthy grand cantor of Berlin. Okay, next photo. This is one you do have.
Yes.
David had. With his first wife or second wife?
Second wife. Or first wife.
Okay.
First wife, hold this out.
Anyhow, that's the peon to that branch of the family. David will pick it up. Okay, next. Okay, so this gets to the brother of the one before. This is Samuel Friedman. Bud's and my grandfather, the father of our mother. And he was born in Shaki, Lithuania, which is really kind of an interesting story to me. But you know, in the early days of Judaism in America, the German Jews came first, okay? And then they were critical of the more peasant-oriented Jews from Russia, Poland, who came later. The funny thing is to me that my mother had shared this prejudice, but she didn't know, she thought her father was Lithuanian, but not Russian Lithuanian, because Russia occupied that Pale of Settlement area. Okay. So this is young Samuel Friedman, who, our grandfather. The next picture is Sandy. Here he is as a rabbi. He trained in Hanover, Germany, had a couple of pulpits in Germany, and then influenced by his brother. And then he went to England. That becomes very important in the story. Next picture. And he met a lovely young lady named Jenny Myers. And here's, okay, this is one Bud may never have seen. This is the Myers family, which this was, the oldest is our grandmother, Jenny, Bud. And the story goes, the reason this is here, so starting in, next picture, if it's the one okay, Samuel the rabbi, keep going. Jenny, his wife, our grandmother. Next. Okay. Recognize this young lady? So, life changed when I met this beautiful young woman. The story goes that Bud and I were both going to go back to Penn State after the war, but then Bud switched back to go over to Newark and work there. But I went to Penn State, and we were to be housed in some crummy barracks from Indiantown Gap military. It was so wet and sluggish that I called up our friend Joe Garner Harpo, pledged me to the Phi Epsilon Pi fraternity. I'm not a native fraternity guy, but I have to get out of this lousy place. And because of that is how I met Bunny Rosenthal. So the story goes that she was going with a guy named George Cantor. And George was a little bit older than Bunny. He was graduating in December. And one November day said, Ted, I got to go back to take care of the family business in New Jersey. Will you look after Bunny? George graduated in December. I've been looking after Bunny ever since. So this continues our beautiful relationship. So it was just sensational to go to school together at Penn State. For a year and a half, we took classes together, English literature, social psych, sociology, marriage and the family. And then we were married August 15th, 1948. Know that date, because what's upcoming?
War. Or the end of the war.
The war's already over.
What's to
Look at
happen
my dad.
coming next year?
Korean War.
The 70s.
70 years of marriage.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
remarkable.
So we're still
Congratulations.
somewhat viable. Okay, next picture. The twins. There's the twins. And I should say that our uncle, go back, Uncle Dave, who's the bottom one, he used to beat up our father with words saying, I'm smarter than you. I was 10 minutes born. I lived 10 minutes more than you did in your life. Hi comes the family. So we've begun more with the next photograph, please. This is our buds and my mother Ivy when she was like 14 months old. But it says the family had some money at that time because we had photographs all the time. This is Ivy Friedman, born 1897, September 11th. Yeah, 9/11. She was born on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
The next photograph. Okay, this is the famous photograph of the mother, and you know which the good-looking guy is the tall guy. Next photograph. And this is the little guy. Okay, so this is. Okay, we got to tell the story now. Unknown except to a few intimates. My birth certificate says Harry with an I-E, Friedman Rubin. That's my birth certificate. Like Bud's is Bernard Friedman Rubin. So somehow as a baby, my mother kept calling me Snooky. There was a famous actress, Baby Snooks. What was her name? Well, Fanny Bryce portrayed something called Baby Snooks. So I became Snooky. And then I became the other guy's Nookie. And when I was a teenager, I learned what Nookie is. And so I had a dilemma. My spelling of Harry was an I-E named for an uncle who died before me. Okay? And I didn't like the name Harry. And then there was Nook and Snooky and Nook. And then I tried to date a girl and said, Father, this is Nook. Nookie. That didn't go over too big. So I developed a plan. I was going to change my name to Ted. So I was not born Ted. So how did I do that? It happened that I was the sports editor of our high school yearbook. It happened this was wartime, and the editor, as some did, went off halfway through their senior year to start medical school. So I became the editor. So in the picture, I did the whole rest of the yearbook. I made it Harry F. Ted Rubin. I put as a yearbook. Then I applied to Penn State and I dropped the F. So I became Harry Ted Rubin or H. Ted Rubin. Okay? So that's my official name for years and years and years because I liked the name. I just chose, Bud said that he chose the name. There was a great slugger than Ted Williams. But I liked the name. I knew a friend named Ted. I chose Ted over Tom. So I became H. Ted Rubin. That's next photograph. Okay, that's the famous Atlantic City photograph. Next photo.
Where was
Okay.
Atlantic City, right?
Jerry rightly said, try to get some social significance out of your presentation. So this is Ted and Bunny Rubin. We're now married 2 years. Bunny, we both finished, we went to graduate school in Cleveland, what's now called Western Reserve University, then called Western Reserve University. Bunny did her master's in speech and hearing therapy. I did mine in social work. And we decided during the year we would try to get to a program to Europe. And what did we find but the Quakers? And of course, we went to William Penn High School, Bud and I, and we always knew something about the Quakers. And they had a program of international volunteerism. And so here, Bunny and I went to Europe in 1950 with the Quakers, who were the international group in an international volunteer program. So Bunny and I were assigned to Austria, the Tyrol, to help build SOS Kinderdorf. Who knows what Kinderdorf is? You know what kindergarten is? Children's Town, or was the first of many for war orphan children, which exists today around the world, although it serves more youngsters who are in need of treatment or care, and they're not war orphan anymore so much. But this led to, we were out of graduate school. I said to Bunny, let's go for about 15 months. We'll spend 9 weeks in the children's village, then we'll tour Europe and come back home and put our good master's degrees to work. And what did you say, Bunny?
Let's stay for as long as we can stay, as long as we can
So
subsist.
this is the first lesson. You learn to listen to your wife. We stayed a year, and we did an unbelievable year on $500.
Wow.
We stayed youth hostels. We hitchhiked everywhere, and we went into Vienna, and we met the dean of the School of Social Work, and she says to me, you know, the American ambassador, he needs a tutor for his son. Would you do that? So for either $3 or $3 a day, I tutored Bruce Donnelly. And Bunny and I had Thanksgiving dinner at the ambassador's house. I always remember the butler. What did he do, Bun?
Well, he brought out the turkey, and we were pretty hungry living in the hostels.
He showed the turkey around and took it back and carved it up.
And gave us one little slice.
But this then led, we met a woman there at a social work convention. Stop in Geneva when you come through, and I might have something for you. So we stopped in Geneva. She was with the UN. She said, we've put money into a school in Geneva to train people to work in children's institutions. This is then 1950. And so we said, okay, we'll house you at the school. You'll teach a class. So Bunny and I taught an unbelievable class on caring for children the best we could in alternative facilities. These were people to work in children's institutions. And while in Geneva, we met this wonderful woman from England named Lady Joan Allen, for whom our daughter Marjorie has the middle name Joan. And she ran UNICEF in Europe. And her husband had been a labor lord and its secretary of the Independent Labor Party, who during World War I, he and Bertrand Russell were locked up together in a cell underwater in England for being conscientious objectors. So sequel to that is, Bunny and I thought it was so great. Lady Joan Allen, we loved her, she liked us, we were impressionable young people. So years later, 1970, we go back to England, and we arrange to meet again with Lady Allen. And we say, this is our daughter whose middle name is for you, Joan, Lady Joan. And she says, well, that's so interesting. My name is really not Joan, it's Marjorie. But with the English spelling M-A-R-G-E-R-Y. But why you call me Joan is because years ago, my husband-to-be and my brother and I were hiking from Rome to Florence, and he said to me, I'm going to call you Joan because you look like Joan of Arc with your haircut this way. And so Marjorie loves her name, middle name Joan for Lady Joan Allen, who's a noteworthy landscape architect and who was responsible for major changes in Britain's care of children. Because she was landscaping a nursery school. She saw these ragamuffin kids come by every day. She looked, where do you live? Children's institution up the hill. She went up there, says it's terrible. She visited a whole bunch of children's institutions, terrible. She wrote a booklet called Whose Children? And she had, in the London Times, 3 or 4 times said, we can't take any more letters from all these people who went to these institutions, because they have support letters for her from H.G. Wells to the London Times. Please let Lady Allen's Whose Children be published. From Bertrand Russell, from Anna Freud, and from
Bud Rubin.
Bertrand Russell, one other, H.G. Wells, anyhow. She was that established. So this is why we have our daughter Marjorie. And why we did good and then came back and we moved to Chicago for work. Bunny, speech and hearing, I in social work. Next photo. Okay, that leads into something really important. So H. Ted Rubin gets elected, first of all, 1960 to the state legislature of Colorado. This goes back to Harrisburg. Story interruption. Okay, 1943, senior in high school. I say to our father, Dad, you know the Republican people here. I want to be a page boy in the legislature, in the state capitol.
To get out of high
Next
school.
day, next day I was a page boy in the state senate of Pennsylvania. As Bunny says, every day I could get out of school, senior year, lawfully. They accepted that it was not truancy, but you had work, and I was getting paid $28 a week to run errands for these senators, which 1943
Big money.
paid my tuition a couple of years. Okay, so what was significant politically, socially, is when I became a Democrat. The Republicans, Bud and I grew up in a Republican town. 1936, Bud, we had sunflowers for somebody named Alf Land in Kansas, running for president Republican against Roosevelt. Bud and I wore those things.
Oh,
Wow.
Republicans. The town was Republican. All the Jews were Republican. All the blacks were Republicans.
Isn't that amazing?
So, okay, so we start Penn State. Graduate high school in June, start college in June, 1943. My first term paper, How I Became a Democrat, having been appointed by Republican state senator to Republican-dominated Senate. Because Republicans were all talking about business. The Democrats were in the minority. They talked about schools and education and health and welfare. So that just switched me. So,
Left-wing Democrat.
yes. So, Bunny and I work in Chicago, social work, speech and hearing. I could decide to go to night law school at DePaul University. And Bunny, shortly thereafter, had Marjorie, and I was doing social work by day, law school, 4 nights a week in summers. And we decided we were going to go take a vacation in 1954, I guess it was. We were going to go to Minnesota and learn to fish. But a friend said, no, go to Colorado instead. You'll like it there. So Bunny and I come out to Colorado, we camp, and we visit all over Colorado. We decided in 2 years, when I graduate law school, we'll move to Denver, and we did. We arrive in Denver in '56. Son Stephen, okay, I don't know where the family, is there a family picture of oh, okay. Might as well hold on to that. So it happens, when I went to law school, I said, maybe I can become a lawyer who works with families, combine social work and law. This I was able to do in Denver. Maybe I could become a state legislator, because I saw some of those state senators weren't very great. So in 1960, 4 years after being in Denver, I'm elected to the state legislature of Colorado, and that was amazing. So we had a Democratic majority the first year by 1 vote. Republicans swept aside the next term. But in that second term, we did a study of the need for judges around the state. And we decided on one needed, a second judge, juvenile, in Denver. So 1964, I get elected the new juvenile court judge in Denver. It takes what I got knocked off 6 years later, I should tell you. But during those 6 years, first, the famous glue sniffing action research project, Bunny Sings Signal of Time. Noteworthy project where I got the money. We intervened with glue sniffing boys, all Hispanic, and we 3 different models plus a control group. A national conference on glue sniffing that I hosted with the governor greeting people, the mayor greeting people. That was noteworthy. Okay, and also in the state legislature, I'd obtained a forestry camp for delinquent kids, boys, near Denver, modeled after California's then delinquency camp, like the one I visited Sandy in Healdsburg once, in New York, which was a really neat place. I got that for Colorado. And what else did I do? I laid the groundwork for new children's laws. And until 1965, there was no U.S. Supreme Court decision on delinquency. And I anticipated the big one in '67. I got the legislature to do a study commission for a children's code. I was its key advisor, went all over the state with the children's code, and became Judge Rubin's children's code, and the cops came after me. And that's not very nice. But they kept saying, cops say this is bad, and with Judge Rubin's children's code. Pharmacists say this is bad. Anyhow, it led up to my defeat.
And becoming a folk hero.
I was a folk hero. So this leads, this is Bunny and Ted Rubin on the day I became a judge in January '65. Go in next. This is the family. At the swearing in, this is Bunny's dad up here with the glasses, Henry Rosenthal, who came up from a pneumonia bed in Florida to be there. So there's the family, Marjorie in the middle there, Bunny. Stephen over here. Stephen would be with us, except today he's in a country called Senegal, photographing diabetes. He's now a professor. The neat thing, our son Stephen is a professor of photography in the School of Visual Arts, Penn State University.
Back to Penn State.
Bud's a Penn Stater. Hell of a Penn Stater. I am. Bunny is.
I am.
Okay, and David is. And further, Penn State. Something else about Penn State. Okay, so our Colorado son teaches Penn State, and that's sensational. There's little Jefferson over there. And some of you know Jefferson died at age 36. A noteworthy classical sculptor, and some of you have seen the film on him that's come out, the book on him, but there was a 56-minute film produced in the last year and a half on Jefferson, who was a rather marvelous classical sculptor. Okay, next. That was Ted Mother at the. Is that the last one, or we got anything more? Okay, that's the folks up in Penn State, Bud, in front of Old Main, and that's the folks. So the story goes, and
I
this
thought
was
that was you.
Samuel
I
Friedman's.
know, I think you look alike.
So let me wrap this
And
up to
Ariana
say,
too.
okay, career-wise, after I no longer a judge, I'm able to join a new organization came to Denver called the Institute for Court Management. And they were training court administrators. I was a juvenile justice trainer, researcher. And during the course of that, I was invited to do a book. It's called The Court's Fulcrum of the Justice System. Then I did another book called Juvenile Justice. Then I did a book of readings to go with a book called Juvenile Justice. And then a really neat grant I got to study 5 juvenile court judges around the country. And that became a book called Behind the Black Robes, Juvenile Court Judges in the Court. And in
And who did you
1992,
dedicate
after
it to?
retired from the Institute, a colleague said, start writing for this journal we're doing. And so now 140 articles later, I'm still writing for this journal called Juvenile Justice Update. And book number 5 and 6 have been out, and number 7 the publisher has, and I'll be editing that
But
very
can
soon.
you get it on Amazon?
So, anyhow, career-wise, Plenty's been my, let you know, in August we'll celebrate number 70. It has been rather sensational. So we have 3 grandchildren, one of whom is with us, Ariana, who is. Her sister is over in Paris right now, and our granddaughter at Penn State is playing volleyball right now. She's really good. So, thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you.